Wait, what was that? Go back a minute.
You don't need to. Landscape, water, plants, T-Rex. Time to head back home, maybe.
What on earth
So,
is going
explore
on?
your world. Exploring takes time.
Tudor
Born to dare.
with dinosaurs?
Hello?
TGV, old boy. Something rather unbelievable has happened.
Don't tell me you've run out of champagne.
Good God, man, of course not. Now listen here. There's a deep fake video of moi circulating the interwebs.
Hugo, what are you on about?
Someone from the House of Tudor has added me to one of their videos. Some sort of fantasy action thriller for humans.
House of Tudor?
Yes, darling. As in the royal house. Henry VIII, all these lovely, gorgeous wives. I believe they're in the watch business now.
Hugo, that's not you. It's an advert. They've hired another actor.
I say, he does look like my distant cousin, Alfie. But why would they hire him and not have an absolute icon like moi?
Well, maybe because you're a watch snob?
Ha! How rude.
Hello? Hugo? Hugo?
Okay, hi guys, and welcome to the show. I'll start off with a wristwatch check, wearing my Rolex GMT Pepsi there on the jingly, jangly Jubilee. A few months back, I did a video about hunting for sweet spots on the vintage watch market via eBay. I shared my purchase of the highly underappreciated Seiko Moon Phase that I was able to buy for a few $100. A wonderfully unique and fun, affordable alternative to the iconic Scrooged watch, an Audemars Piguet perpetual calendar famously worn by Bill Murray in one of the greatest Christmas movies of all time from 1988. A lot of you enjoy these affordable bargain treasure hunts and requested more. Well, today I strike gold again with an impressive, fully in-house Japanese-made automatic that is the perfect affordable alternative to the Rolex Day-Date or DateJust for a mere $500, and the generally untold story of an early innovator in Japanese watchmaking. Now, to fully understand the motivation behind this latest acquisition, I have to rewind to 2017 when I was lent this stunning creature here. This is a Rolex, I think it's the 16014 from about the 80s. It belonged to, or still belongs to a very good friend, actually one of my best friends from Queens. And if you're watching, ti saluto, ti mando un abbraccio forte forte. And he's a big time Rolex collector. In fact, you would have seen several of his watches on the channel in reviews and that kind of thing. So this particular Rolex came on a horribly stretched out Jubilee bracelet, and I happen to have a German-made Fluco suede strap that I purchased from Holben's, and so I swapped it out, and boom, one of the most perfect strap and watch combos I have ever experienced came to fruition. In fact, I came so close to buying that watch rather than giving it back. So over the years, I have owned many different DateJusts, as you guys know. A ton of different dial colors, new ones, vintage ones, steel, two-tone, you name it. Even an oyster quartz at some point, when they were absolute bargains and nobody wanted them. How have times changed? But this particular variation with the grey dial is something I keep coming back to. I think it even coined my catchphrase of being a strap monster all the way back in 2017. It also happened to be the Rolex that I got the most compliments in only several weeks of wearing it. This has never happened with any other Rolex I've ever worn. So over the subsequent years, I collected and owned a whole myriad of Tudor Day-Dates, or Date-Day, as they like to differentiate themselves from their bigger brothers from Rolex. And then that culminated finally getting the single quickset 18038 quintessential champagne dial, the works from Rolex. I traded that, I think 2 years later, to my current Day-Date with the linen dial, double quickset, and that's the 18238. Yeah, I'm actually remembering, I think I'm remembering reference numbers. My God, I'm gonna be a real watch enthusiast soon. Now, my options of finding an affordable Day-Date or DateJust style in 36mm is rather limited, especially when it comes to replicating that particular style of grey dial. The first and most faithful watch to capture the feel of it would be another Tudor, either just a Prince Date or, take this example currently on sale, the reference 94500. A little bit older than the Tudors I previously owned, but it certainly captures the look faithfully, even having some of the components, like the crown, still signed with the Rolex branding, which was very typical on older Tudors, and you can see it on my Tudor Submariner as well, from the same era. But inside, of course, there's the more affordable to produce, and therefore cheaper to maintain, an ETA caliber. While the price on this particular listing is, I think, fair, especially as vintage Tudor is in such high demand, how about something under $1,000? There is, of course, the Belova Super Seville, but a friend of mine actually owns one, and while they are undoubtedly great watches with an ETA inside as well, they are a little chunky when I got to wear one. So I was not left with many 36mm grey dial options, until I came across Ricoh and their forgotten legacy of watchmaking. Knife check. Here is the old grippy, the Griptilian, bench-made, benchmark, have I got it correct? Bench-made, there. There we are. This came very, very quickly from Santiago, I think, in Chile. It's just in bubble wrap, I can already see it. Not the best packaging, so this apparently is new old stock, and that's why I absolutely leapt on it. Make an incision in the top, there. Let's do a drum roll on here. Whoa, wow. Wow. God, that is really new old stock, isn't it? My God. That grey is just amazing. Got signed clasp and everything. It's quite light. Very long legs. Freudian slip. Very long lugs compared to a real oyster case. Absolutely mint. Very light, I suspect, because these, folded links there, empty. Definitely not going to use this bracelet. Sticker still on. I've never seen this before on a watch. This is utterly unique. So, watch the date on the second position. 31st. Let's go again. First. Absolutely amazing. I've never seen a date change like that. This is very interesting movement. It's quite slow beating, so I'm guessing that's a slower beat rate of movement. It's not as smooth as, actually it's very slow. Look at that. Do you see that? But. Let's give it 24 hours and then see how it goes. As always, a little bit of history to help contextualize the watch. The origin of watchmaking at Ricoh can be traced back to Tecano, a clock manufacturer established in 1899. If you haven't seen my videos featuring the history of Japanese watch brands like Seiko, Orient, Casio, Citizen, etc., watchmaking started rather late in Japan, as they were traditionally big importers of Swiss timepieces during that time, but also, more crucially, due to the centuries of cultural and economic isolationism preceding the rapid modernization following the Meiji Restoration. The early 20th century saw a period overshadowed by increasing expansionism and militarization, resulting in the Tecano Watch Company switching to weapons manufacturing during the early 20th century. Following the fast regrowth of Japan after the devastation of World War II, Tecano began producing wristwatches using imported movements from German watchmaker Laco during the late 1950s. Then a joint venture with Hamilton followed, to produce electronic watches for the US market. Tecano's first in-house movement of their own was in the ultra-thin Chateau model, introduced in 1959 and gained worldwide attention.
Despite the very posh-sounding name, Chateau meaning large country house or castle in French, and this was very deliberate to appeal to the European market, sales were very poor and bankruptcy soon loomed for the watch company. This was then exacerbated dramatically by increasing rivalry and stiff competition from the big boys like Seiko, Citizen, Orient, and so on.
In 1962, Tecano was saved by being taken over by the larger Ricoh company, and subsequently Tecano became Ricoh Watch Limited. In order to help ends meet, the now rebranded Ricoh watchmaker continued its partnership with Hamilton by assembling American-made movements in Japan until 1965. Hamilton, in fact, even owned a 60% stake in the Ricoh watches company, and the rest by the larger Ricoh conglomerate brand, as we know them today. They are a giant worldwide producer of optics, cameras, and industrial equipment. You may actually know them for photocopiers and printers. In 1962, Ricoh launched an automatic watch of their own called the Dynamic. It had a 33-jewel movement with an instantaneous changing date and day. This line of watches evolved into many highly distinctive different styles. Many families of calibers also soon followed and remained in production until the 1990s. During the 70s, they even developed their own quartz watches, producing them as early as 1971. Although they still fell behind Seiko, this was some time before Citizen, and this for the first time established Ricoh as the second major producer of watches in Japan during the 1970s. They even produced movements for other smaller German watchmakers, a little like Miyota does for Citizen today. But despite a decade of growth and success, sales generally inevitably declined, and this marked the beginning of the end for Ricoh. And this is where the particular day-date dynamic I scored comes into play.
So how's it performing? Remarkably well. I'm very impressed. It's keeping extremely good time. This is the caliber 61. I think they had about 6 families of movements. It's somewhere in the middle, so it's not the first ones which were more problematic according to my research. There were 38 calibers that they produced, an incredible amount over their relatively short lifespan of the company. I love the very pronounced flat top. I'm guessing it's mineral, obviously, it's from that era, but it's great. It gives me that Rolex feel, but yet it has that unique history, something a bit different, a story to discover, but yet at the same time proprietary made, Japanese made. You can see why I absolutely pounced.
Stylistically, it's very faithful to the oyster style case, perhaps a little curvier and certainly with longer lugs that make it wear more like a 37 or a 38mm even. The dial is just as ravishing as I'd hoped it to be, and the combination of multifaceted applied markers combined with the sunburst dial effect rarely comes alive in different light. I'm glad to say it gives me that hit of grey I was lusting after with the Caravaggio DateJust that I borrowed. The choice of dolphin hands is an interesting touch. It's a subtle nod to the very first Rolex Day-Date reference 6510 from 1956. The first DateJusts had them too, in fact. Rolex began switching to the more typically associated index-style hands that we all know and love today across all their watches sometime in the 1960s. In fact, if anybody does know the precise date, please do share in the comments. Overall, it gives it a slightly more vintagey vibe and naturally adds to its overall understated but undeniable eleganza.
So let's address the big elephant in the room, and that is my stance on homage watches. Now, donkeys years ago, in a very early video of mine, I did, and I still get comments on this every single day. People erroneously think that I'm against homage watches. So the title of the video was 5 Reasons Not to Buy a Homage Watch, where I basically take 5 arguments that typically you see online and utterly destroy them. Because actually I'm pro homage watch. I think it's a great affordable alternative to the illegality and shoddy quality and just the repugnant existence of counterfeit and replica watches, which, as you guys know, I'm vehemently against. Not everyone wants to spend 30 grand, 40, 50 on a day date, and some people just don't want to, you know, if they're sensible, right? So this is a great alternative, and this actually has some history and story behind it. And if anyone asks, oh, nice Rolex, tell them the story about it. It's an interesting conversation piece as well, but at the same time gives me that day date look. Now, my biggest concern was servicing it in the future. Parts are scarce because, of course, it's been 3 decades since this brand actually produced watches, but on YouTube I've seen several watchmakers doing videos and showing how they service and repair these movements, so it is still actually possible. So that's, yeah, I'm kind of a bit relieved there. In terms of negatives, well, it's got to be one of the worst bracelets I've ever experienced. Almost humorously bad, in fact, and really outdated. It feels so cheap. Just look at the way the links are folded. In fact, I'm not even sure how you take links out. You literally have to bend it very crudely with some kind of screwdriver, I guess. I might actually source an aftermarket presidential bracelet and see if it fits to give me that presidential feeling. But right now, to be honest, I'm loving it on the Fluco Nizza strap. Once again, I sourced the very same strap from Holben's to really recapture that feeling. And I've got to say, 5 years later, Fluco still make the best quality suede straps in the biz. Another disadvantage is this being vintage, and despite its new old stock condition, it will not have the reassuring water resistance that a good old trusty Rolex or Tudor Oyster case features. One of the main reasons that makes their sport watches so utterly compelling. The lack of screw-down crown is a little worrying, but with solid gold being such a softer material in my big boy Day-Date, this fits the role as a beta Day-Date with a more understated and less of that look at me kind of aesthetic more fittingly. Lastly, being a product of the late 80s, there is no hacking, but there is a rudimentary kind of back hacking reminiscent of the 7S26 equivalent from Seiko of that era, no less. The very final negative is, if you are considering one of these, please do be careful. There are a ton of Franken versions, especially coming out of India on eBay. I was extremely fortunate enough to find a very good watch dealer in Chile. However, it required almost 4 months of patience before taking the plunge. So happy hunting, be vigilant, ask a million questions, and make sure it's all original, and do as much research as possible if you really want to get one of these. Yeah, I'm chuffed to bits. Che piccolo bellezza è questo. Every month I like to include a brand or watch I haven't talked about before, so this definitely ticks that box. Guys, do share your suggestions for affordable alternatives for DateJusts, DayDates, all that good stuff down below. And also, equally importantly, is nominations for future iconic watches that you want me to find affordable alternatives to on eBay or online, stuff like that, down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like this video, the best way to support the channel, and I will catch you in the next one. Onwards, upwards. Thank you for watching. Ciao.